Hello flight simmers, welcome to part 3 of our Airbus beginner tutorial series. My name is Marty and I'll be your guide for today. On this episode, we'll go through engine start, pushback, and taxi. Stay tuned. On the last 2 episodes, we went through cockpit preparation and MCDU setup. Today, we'll be starting our aircraft's engines and taxi to the runway for takeoff. First things first, we have to go up to the overhead panel and check if the fuel pumps, APU, and APU bleed are on, and then turn the beacon lights on. The beacon lights are those red flashing lights outside the aircraft that warns people to stay cautious because you're about to start your engines. And then turn the seatbelt signs on to notify the passengers that we're about to get moving. This is the part right here where I'd like to make a cabin announcement because why not?
Guten Morgen, hier spricht Ihr Kapitän. Im Namen der Crew, ich begrüße Sie an Bord des Lufthansa-Fluges 17 nach Hamburg. Die Flugzeit beträgt 1 Stunde und 5 Minuten und wir werden auf einer Höhe von 7.900 Metern fliegen. Befestigen Sie Ihr Sicherheitsgurte und genießen den Flug. Danke.
Once you're done with all that, go to the FCU, make sure that the flight director is on, and set the autopilot speed to 250 knots. It's best to do this right now while we're still on the ground instead of having to turn the knob when we're already up there busily flying the aircraft. 250 knots is the speed limit in a Class B airspace, such as here in Frankfurt. This has to be so in order for air traffic controllers to easily manage incoming and outgoing traffic, and also to lessen the likelihood of air collisions since no one is flying faster than the rest. Right after takeoff, when we turn the autopilot on, the system will fly the aircraft at that speed. Once you're done with that, set the autopilot altitude to 10,000 feet. 10,000 feet is also the limit or ceiling for the airspace. Once we go beyond 10,000 feet, we are outside Frankfurt airspace, so we can continue going higher and fly much faster. No more restrictions. Next, we go down to our throttle quadrant to make sure that the throttle levers are all the way back to idle. And then we go back to the overhead to verify that the external power is on, APU is on, and APU bleed is on. We definitely need APU bleed for engine start. Then we go back down to the pedestal and set the engine mode selector to ignition start, and then flip engine 2 switch to start engine number 2, the right engine. If you go over to your engine display, you can observe the engine as it spools up. Now, why do we have to start the right engine first? This is for safety reasons. Passengers and crew are boarding and deplaning through the left side of the aircraft, right? So in case of fire and engine start or whatever, everybody can safely evacuate the aircraft through the left side. There's also another reason why the right engine needs to be started first. Can you tell us why in the comment section below? Now the engine stabilizes at around 19.5% N1. So it's now time to start. Oh, do you hear that? That's the power transfer unit, or PTU. It sounds like a dog barking in the hold. Perfectly normal, nothing to worry about. Alright, it's now time to start engine number 1, the left engine. Same as before, observe the engine spool up and wait for it to stabilize to 19.5% and 1.
Und in der Premium Economy Class ist sie ebenfalls unter der Armlehne verstaut. In der Economy Class.
Alright, both engines are now stable. We can now turn the engine mode selector from ignition start to normal. Going overhead, check if the generator buttons have no lights on them. Means the generators are working just fine. So we can now turn off the external power and also shut down the APU. We no longer need those. Alright, so our aircraft is now ready for pushback. To begin pushback, you need to call ground services. You can do that by opening your communications panel by pressing scroll lock on your keyboard. Scroll all the way down to Ground Services and click on Request Pushback. As you can see, there are many other options available here. I'll leave that to you to explore and enjoy. All we have to do now is wait for the Ground Services tug to finish pushing our aircraft to the taxiway.
Please watch your luggage. Hold the handrail. Mind your step.
Your attention, please. Please do not smoke in the terminal building. Smoking is only permitted in the specified smoking areas. Thank you.
Um sich wieder loszuschnallen, brauchen Sie den Verschluss des Gurtes nur anzuheben. Da unerwartet Turbulenzen auftreten können, sind Sie verpflichtet, sich anzuschnallen, sobald Sie Ihren Sitzplatz eingenommen haben. Dies dient Ihrer eigenen Sicherheit. Dieses Flugzeug hat 12 Notausgänge. Sie sind
Alright, we're done with pushback. Make sure that the parking brakes are on, and then go to the overhead and see if there are buttons lighting up. Everything looks good. Now go down to the FCU. All is good as well. Flight instruments, they're good. Engine and systems display, they're good as well. MCDU, I want that in the performance page. For this flight, we'll be taking off with flaps 1 and trims set to 1.5. So we go to the pedestal and set the trims to 1.5, and then we go to the back part of the pedestal to arm the speed brakes and set the flaps to 1.
Finden Sie Ihre Schwimmweste unter der Armlehne.
And then you can check if your flight controls are working fine. As for the flight stick I'm using for my sim, I'll leave the link to it in the description box below. Now we can turn on our taxi light. The taxi light allows us to illuminate the taxiway, of course, and it also warns people or other vehicles to get out of the way. Turn the parking brakes off, add a little power to somewhere around 36% N1, and our aircraft starts moving. Taxiing can be very challenging, but it's quite easy to master. The trick is to aim for the yellow taxi line by putting it directly under the right cheek of your butt. That's right. This may seem so counterintuitive at first, but understand that the pilot sits 2 stories above the ground, therefore limiting visibility, and the nose wheel is situated behind the pilot. So in making turns, your point of view must overshoot the line a little bit before you start making the turn. Also, it helps if you keep your speed to about 0.2 knots, or just about the speed of a person running. You don't want to taxi too fast, but too slow is also kinda unsafe and boring. The trick is to keep your power steady at around 30% N1, and then just gently use the brakes every now and then to control your speed. Also, don't forget to check left and right before making a turn. Stop, look, and listen. Remember, your wingspan is about 36 meters wide, and you have 2 massive engines dangling underneath your wings, so you have to be very careful. Stop, look, and listen. On the next episode, we'll be talking about takeoff and cruise. This has been Marty, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow.